Hi, good day. Welcome back, guys. This is Jabari, and today we're going to be walking through DHCP, which is Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. Now, what this is basically is when a computer joins a network, it's given an IP address. Now, in our previous videos, what we've been doing is we've been giving it static addresses. So we've been making up addresses and putting it in. But in the video we're going to cover today, what's going to happen is we're going to have the computer automatically designate an address to any computer that joins the network. So let's get started. So I already have my server running here. I'm going to go to server and we're going to select add roles. Of course, you know the drill. Go to server manager, you select next, and you select DHCP server. You select next, and we're off with the installation. You make sure that that is the address of your server, and you're going to need to validate this address just to ensure that it is the correct address. Select next. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any Wins server on our computer, so we're not going to be using this. So you're going to leave it at Wins is not required. Right? If you do have a Wins server, you just check the box there, and it's going to become available, and you enter the credentials necessary. DHCP scopes. Now this is very important, but we're going to come back to this later. You can set it up here, but we're going to go more in depth into scopes a little bit. So you're going to press add if you'd like to add your scopes here. Like I said, we won't be doing it in this video, but you can add it here. There's another way to do it, and we'll get to that very shortly. It's actually pretty important. We're not going to be using IP version 6 or DHCP version 6. So you select disable, and we're going to select next, and we're going to leave the current credentials, and we're also going to select next, and we'll install. And once that's completed, we're going to select close, and you're going to see DHCP server is installed. Now we're going to want to configure everything. So you're going to go to start and administrative tools, and then you're going to select DHCP. Now once you've selected DHCP, you're going to select your server, and you're going to see IP version 6 being an option. We didn't install anything for IP version 6, so we're not going to have to worry about that. What we are going to do is select that there, and we're going to right click on version 4, IP version 4, and press new scope. Now a scope is basically the range of addresses that the computer would be allowed to take from. So it's going to be allocating addresses to computers that join the network. What you're going to need to do is set a range so that it will take from a specific place and give within that specific place. So we're going to set up that scope. So you're going to select next, and we're going to name it handout. And we're just gonna leave the description as add. And our starting IP address would be our server address in this case. Now, only for the sake of the tutorial would we leave this as our starting address. Usually there's a different starting address, and the end address would be where we would want it to take addresses up to. So we're gonna put 10.60, and we're going to select next. Of course, it doesn't have to be 60, it could be 100, it could be 200. Select next, and we're going to start with exclusions. Now, exclusion is basically IP addresses that you don't want to be given out to any computer on the network. So although the computer joins the network, there are specific type of addresses you would like to give. So what we're going to do is we're going to exclude the first 10 addresses. Just for the sake of the tutorial, you could reserve all but one address on the network. So from 10.1, and we're going to do 192.168.10.10, and we're going to add that right there, and you're going to select next. And least time is basically the amount of time a computer has with a specific IP address. Now, you don't want a computer to have a specific IP address because there's a lot of stuff a user would be able to do with having a designated IP address for a certain amount of time. We'll get into that a little later down, but for the sake of this tutorial, I mean, this is not necessary. So we're just going to set the lease at 2 minutes because we're going to test something in a little while. Select next. And yes, I want to configure these now. Our default gateway would be our server address. You select add, make sure and select that add button. Select next. And the parent domain is of course jabari.com, and the server name is jabari.com. Now your server name will be different. And we select add once you press the resolve button and go on to next. Like I said, we don't have any Wins servers, so we're not going to get to deal with anything like that. You select next. And yes, we'd like to set this scope up now, and finished. So when we come back to the screen, we're going to see, of course, you saw its name handout and the address pool, which would start from 1 and go to 60, and reserved addresses, which are 1 and go to 10. Now, let's say you have a computer on the network that you would like to get a specific address upon login. This is where reservations will come into play. So what we can do is go to the reservations tab. We see they have no prior reservations here. You right click and you select new reservation. Now you're going to need another machine that is joined to your network. Thankfully, in previous tutorials, we've added computers to the domain and so on and so forth. If you're still shaky on that, you can go back and check out my video on that. But we start our client machine and we just need to get a bit of information from our client machine. And we're going to do IP config space/all. And there we see it's given. It has a specific IP address that we gave to it statically, which means we put in that information. None of this was done by the computer. You can see DHC enabled, it says no. So this is a Windows Vista machine, so we're just going to name it WinV for Windows Vista. And we're going to give it a different address just to show you that it does reserve specific addresses. Now we reserve from 1 to 10, so we're going to put in an unorthodox number, so we're going to have 192.168.10.17, and we need the MAC address of our client computer in order for it to be reserved. So what you can do is you go, once you type ipconfig space/all, you're going to see the physical address, which is also known as the MAC address. So you're going to take that down and you're going to type the MAC address in, and we select add. Now once we close here, we see the description and the address that is reserved for this system. So in order to test that we are connected to the network and it is receiving its IP address, we're going to need to ensure that DHCP is enabled on the client machine. It's not just as simple as setting up the scope. So we're going to go into our network and sharing center and manage network connections. We go to property and IP version 6 is disabled. We select properties and we're going to select obtain IP addresses automatically for both of them. We're going to select OK and OK once more. And just like that, we're supposed to be assigned 192.168.10.17. But in order to check that, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the command prompt and we're going to type ipconfig space/. So once we see that it's joined to the network, we see it right there, we need to check the IP address. So what we can do is go back to the command prompt and type ipconfig space/ all. So we're going to check to see the IP address has been assigned. So we see 192.168.10.17. And what we can do is we could type ipconfig space/release, and we see there's no address. And what we can do to test that, to make sure that it does this IP address is reserved, is type ipconfig space/renew. And bippity boppity boo. There you go. We see that the IP address given is 192.168.10.17. Thanks again for watching. I do hope we see you again.